see you guys in the dark.
I'm 18 and my ex-boyfriend is 23. We dated for about 3 months, and then 2 months ago, I decided we weren't compatible for various reasons. A major one of which was that he didn't respect my religious beliefs. I'm a Christian, and the main part he didn't understand was that I wouldn't sleep with him before marriage. Our relationship seemed good, although it was my first relationship, so I don't know a lot to base it off. And he always seemed like a good person. Our breakup was amicable enough and he wanted to stay friends, which pretty consisted of texting each other small talk, meeting up occasionally, etc. More like acquaintances than real friends, I suppose. But the point is, we didn't fall out, and there weren't any particular red flags before about 2 weeks ago, when we had a bit of argument. It was Sunday, so I went to church as usual, and to my surprise, he came to meet me afterwards. We set off, walking back to my house, and he rolled his eyes at me and said something along the lines of, "I can't believe someone like you would buy into rubbish like that." Honestly, even if he was joking, the fact that he wasn't even making an effort to tolerate my beliefs, he could have just said nothing about them. I didn't bring it up bugged me a little, and I told him so. His response, "Yeah, well, I'm not gonna like it if it's the reason I haven't stuck my dick in you yet." I wasn't at all prepared for him to say that, and I was just shocked and disgusted that he was being like this after we had tried to have a normal friendship, so I just walked away from him. I couldn't think of anything to say, so I sped up and walked away. He caught up with me and tried to put his arm around me, telling me to be honest because he knew I wanted him. I pretty much shoved him off and ran the rest of the way back home. Almost straight afterwards, he texted me an apology, which I ignored for a while I tried to calm down. Then replied to with, "Fine, just please don't say things like that in the future." And I genuinely believed he wouldn't. A little dumb, I know, but he had always seemed pleasant before. His apology seemed genuine. And I'll confess I may have been a soft touch where he was concerned, seeing as I still cared about him and had regretted breaking up with him a few times since we broke up. Anyway, things settled back down to normal for about 3 days. Then he messaged me again, saying he still wanted me. Before I could reply, he sent an apology, and I reaffirmed that I only wanted to be friends with him now. That's when he decided to flip the crazy switch on me. I received a string of texts telling me that a platonic relationship wasn't going to work. We should be friends with benefits because he had to have sex with at some point, promptly followed by a request to meet up. I thought the best response to that level of sudden weirdness that had caught me off guard was no response at all, which is usually a pretty clear no, if everything I had said before hadn't been. He didn't stop, even after about an hour's silence from me. In fact, he got creepier. He accused me of teasing him, and then said that we were going to have sex whether I was playing his game or not. At this point, I was pretty panicky, because he was starting to sound like he was going to rape me. But I tried to calmly respond in case I was getting things out of hand in my head and reading it wrong, or in case he was genuinely thinking I was just playing hard to get. So on the off chance it was misunderstanding, I spelled it out for him, telling him clearly I was ignoring because I wasn't interested. His follow-up to that chilled me to the bone. He accused me of being a phrase for a female dog that I'm not saying, because let's keep this clean, because I was mad about Sunday still, then told me if I didn't go to meet him, he was going to come around when you're home alone and get what I want. At this point, I felt like I didn't know him at all anymore, and I couldn't predict if he was serious or not, so I got scared and decided I should get the police involved. I told him as much in hope he'd back off now, but he didn't. He just seemed to find it funny, and told me that by the time they managed to do anything, "You'll be mine." At this point, I thought I wasn't safe in my home, and I got out. Well, I put the post online first, because I wanted some evidence if I really didn't make it to the police. Then packed some emergency things, and drove to my parents' house, an address my ex was thankfully unawares of. Once I was there, I showed my father the messages I'd been sent, and he took me to the police station for moral support. And because he was very angry at the time, the police did drive-bys of my house that night, because we were concerned about break-ins after threats to come and get me. but happily no one tried to break in. Even so, they took my ex in for questioning in the morning. A police officer handling this got in touch much later that day and told me they had adequate evidence for me detaining and questioning him. I gather he basically admitted it, wasn't very repentant about it for me to press charges. Currently planning to charge him with sexual harassment and threatening behavior. After that, he was released on bail with conditions not to contact me. I wish I could say that's the end of it, but I'm suspicious that he has contacted me. 2 days after the original texts were sent, I worked the breakfast shift at the cafe I work in, and not long after I arrived, some flowers with a card were delivered. The delivery person had clearly been given my name, since he asked for me by name. The card was the creepy part, though it was a written-to-order thing and probably toned down quite a bit in comparison to what he might have written personally, but it made my skin crawl. First off, it started by calling me love, referred to this incident just as a falling out, apologized like that would make me feel better, but then said that I should apologize to him too, because we both took it too far. Then said I'd be happier if we got together again. It wasn't signed by name, but it isn't hard to tell who it is. But I don't have evidence, so I don't know if I can say that he's violated his bail conditions. I did report it to the police, but they didn't have much they could do either, given the lack of proof it was his. I've also had similar issues with social media. Some weird Facebook friends requests I've deleted that I think were from him, XUT. But nothing serious, thankfully. All I can really say to finish this, or at least hopefully finish this, since I'm praying this is a non-ongoing story, is Creepy X. I've got my pepper sprayed and I'm staying with my parents where I can reach my dad's gun, so it's probably in both our interests not to meet again. Until I take you to court, that is. The first thing I have to add is that, following the advice of some of the wonderful people I asked, I called the florist who sent me the gift and explained the situation. The person on the end of line was actually quite snotty about it and told me they didn't give out personal information, whether I had boyfriend troubles or not. So I spoke to the police officer handling my case, who, by the way, couldn't have been better. Very understanding and professional at the same time, and he went into the shop in person. Needless to say, they do give out customer details if a policeman asks. And surprise, surprise, it was my ex. So that counts as bail violation, since he was told not to contact me, and he is back in custody for the time being. 3 days after he was taken into custody again, I went back to my usual residence, seeing as he wasn't a threat anymore. I was still nervous though, so I went with my dad. When we got in, it was evident that a lot of mail had been shoved through the letterbox while I was away. Some of it was genuine stuff, but most of it was reams and reams of crumpled up paper, not sent via the mailman, as none of it was in any envelopes, and it looked as though someone had just shoved it in. There was also a small parcel, bundled up in gift paper but with no labels, which set off alarm bells, especially after I read some of those letters. They basically read like him going mental on paper. Pages and pages of rambling about how we're meant to be. He can't live without me, and I'm being silly, selfish, and stupid for not giving him a second chance. One part sticks in my mind where he swore he wasn't going to let this go, no matter what. After that, I was super uncomfortable, and not sure I wanted to stay there, even though he was in custody, and I was pretty much safe. I put off committing to staying or leaving, just hung out with my dad for a while, deliberately not opening the parcel. I wasn't sure I wanted to know what kind of thing he'd send me after what I'd read, but eventually, I did open it. That's how I decided to go back to my parents' home for a while. Just for comfort, because inside was a small box, wrapped in a couple of layers of paper. The paper was another, long, rambling letter that unnerved me. He went to great lengths to tell me that, although we all make mistakes and both of us took it too far, he would love me forever. And if I apologize to him and stop acting stupid, we can just forget what happened between us and start over again, as husband and wife. His words there, not mine. Yes, he seriously proposed to me like that. Yes, the box had an engagement ring in it. It's a pretty ring, but I know I'd never be comfortable wearing it. No, I'm not going to marry him. I'm going to add this to the growing list of evidence I'm showing the police and the court. So this took place over a few years in a small Ohio town. I went to a real small high school and was all around pretty sheltered. I went on some dates, but never had a real boyfriend until Dave came along. Dave was a popular senior, I was a junior, and many of his friends were dating my friend. Dave was a funny guy and a bit of a troublemaker, but he was very sweet to me. We hit it off and began dating. Dave lived with his foster dad, a man named Greg, whom he'd lived with since age 13 or so. Greg was not married, so it was just them and their dog. Greg worked as a counselor at an adolescent mental health center in town and was literally the kindest person I've ever met. I was interested in pursuing a similar field, so I really enjoyed spending time talking with Greg. At first, it was smooth sailing with Dave, but slowly, things just got worse. Dave confessed to me that he was very depressed and often thought about killing himself. I was shocked and upset. I wasn't sure how to help. I told Greg about it, who assured me he would take care of things. He let me know that Dave had some mental health issues and had been suicidal before. Now I realized that could be a relationship red flag, but as it was my first boyfriend and I had also gone through some depression issues, I just felt obligated to help him through this time. I should add that Dave had previously told me a few very private stories about his abusive childhood, so overall I just felt really bad for him. As time went on, we dated about a year and a half. Dave became worse. He was verbally abusive and very sneaky. I was petrified of the dark, and he would delight in sneaking up and shutting all the lights off whenever we were in a windowless area. We lived a street apart, and at one point, he began sneaking to my home at nighttime and asking me to let him come sleep over. My dumb high school self did. I just continued to feel obligated to help this guy until one day I finally got the guts to cut things off. I told him it was over the day I graduated. I said I wanted to move on to a new stage in my life and all that. He begged and begged, saying he would be better. I didn't buy it and basically told him I didn't want any type of contact. Of course, he threatened suicide over and over via text, but I'd finally got the strength to ignore it. I found out later, Greg had caught Dave taking Greg's gun from safe, but nothing tragic happened. Now this is where shit gets real. I had moved to a town 25 minutes away to attend school. My roommate Jenny was a high school friend who happened to be dating a scumbag from our hometown who sold drugs. Since this dude was still in high school and couldn't drive, he didn't really come over, but she would go stay with him. She would come back and tell me she saw Dave buying drugs from her boyfriend, and Dave would always ask about me all creepy. She knew better than to tell him stuff, especially when he asked where our new place was. And thank goodness, because what happened next still gives me chills. One April night, I get a call from my mom. She said, I need to get out of my apartment and stay with a friend because Dave has just killed someone. And was still on the loose. My mom was besties with the police chief's wife, so she had the scoop. I asked what had happened, and my mom told me the unthinkable. Greg had been found in his basement freezer. Dave had beat him to death, then escaped before anyone discovered the body. I could hardly believe the gruesome news and immediately left my apartment. The next afternoon, I received the news that Dave had been caught. They found him at a rundown motel, a few miles from my apartment. I'll never know if Dave was coming for me, but my gut tells me he was. If this dude was on a killing spree, I'd no doubt be his second target. I wanted so badly to know the truth. I went to a visitation while he was still in the county jail. One of those glass with the phone sort of thing. But once I got there, I just broke. I couldn't pick up the phone, and plus there were others there to talk to him. I never did get the chance to ask, but I'll never forget as the officers led him back to his cell. He turned around one last time and looked me dead in the eye. Still gives me shivers.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.